Senate is due to start debate on the Biden $1.9 trillion stimulus proposal today, with the focus largely on whether the Democrats can hold on to every single one of their 50 votes in order to get it through. Welcome now someone from the other side of the aisle, Republican Senator Mike Braun of Indiana. Senator, it's always great to have you with us. Give us your viewpoint from your side of the aisle. Do you have a role at this point? Can you have some influence to change this legislation, understanding you may well not vote for it in the end?
Well, sadly, we're mostly along for the ride, and it's going to be dependent on how many moderate Democrats are still left that represent states like West Virginia, maybe Arizona, Colorado. There is so much in this bill that has nothing to do with COVID. Ron Johnson, just for sake of kind of describing what this is about, if you took $1.9 trillion bills, he came up with it, you get halfway to the moon. It's a lot of money that we haven't spent $1 trillion of the $4 trillion that we've already done. The prior 5 packages, when we were in control, all had nearly unanimous support, very bipartisan. I think what's going to happen here is we're going through an exercise probably starting Thursday evening. We that are fiscal conservatives are going to belabor it more than the kind of a warm-up we did a couple weeks ago and have to point it out. Obviously, we're borrowing every penny of it, whether you're a believer in modern monetary theory or not. You've even got guys like Larry Summers, Steve Radner, a lot of moderate liberal economists that wonder how you can do this. So it's going to be mostly up to 2 or 3 Democrats to see if you can take these stimulus checks, aim them at the most needy. I'd even be for maybe a little more if it was somebody still didn't have a job and would be at the lowest income levels, but they're expanding eligibility. When I go back to Indiana, the biggest thing I hear, we're nearly back to full employment. That if you put a $400 enhanced unemployment benefit out there, it's going to prolong getting people back to work. So a lot of common sense arguments that I think the Dems are going to have trouble justifying. Sadly, if they want to, they control the votes, they can ram it through.
Okay, just to interrupt for one moment, excuse me, Senator, we do have some news breaking across the Bloomberg, which is that the governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo, will hold a news conference at 1 p.m. Eastern time. As we know, we've not heard from him since that scandal, I think it's fair to call it, developed with respect to 3 women who had allegations about him. So there is a news conference coming up from Governor Cuomo at 1 o'clock Eastern time. I apologize, Senator Braun. Let's come back to you.
Hey, no problem.
Give me a sense of, if it were really targeted, what do we truly need?
Okay, so not too long ago, 10 Republicans went over and offered $618 billion. Billions get thrown around like chump change currently because, you know, trillions seem to be the new level that you got to spend. If you really targeted it, take what's in the bill, which most analysts say 10%. So that's about $200 billion. If you want to aim it at COVID, then you can start peeling off all the rest of the stuff and either tailor it to what places need. You pulled the minimum wage out because it was not germane. I think we might talk about that in a moment, but it depends mostly what kind of shape your economies were in pre-COVID. I come from the street of running a business for 37 years before becoming a senator. Hottest economy we ever had was actually raising wages in the most difficult spots and kept some of these needed regulations in place, but rolled back a lot of the stuff that was impeding growth. Coming off an economy that was growing faster in the tail end of the recovery than the Obama-Biden years tells you something. So California, places that had blanket, policies fighting COVID, shutdowns that were broad and deep. Places like Indiana that paid attention to the guidelines, a little more entrepreneurial on the economic side of it. Like I said, we're back to nearly full employment. That part, the big giveaway to places that had bad business climates, not robust state economies to begin with, are going to benefit mostly from it, and that's rewarding, I think, bad policy. So I think it's somewhere between $2 200 to 300 billion and look at what was proposed in the roughly 600 billion package, that would be plenty. I'm for helping restaurants. I'm for helping anybody that's still waylaid by it, but that increasingly would be a narrow sector: sports, entertainment venues, airlines, obviously, the one place that have gotten special help. Downtown hotels would be in that category. Small businesses in general. Beyond that, most people I talk to back in Indiana are more worried about how to get people back to work than having competition from the federal government.
So, Senator, you mentioned your business background, having built a business.
Yeah.
I remember from prior discussions, you have a wife who also has a small business back in Indiana.
Correct.
Let's talk about that minimum wage that is not going to be now, and this package is wending its way through the Senate. Is there a way, in fact, that Republicans could come to support that? And let me go back to the last time it was raised. It was raised by Republicans during the George W. Bush administration. It was paired with, as I recall, tax breaks for small business because of the recognition that it hits small business harder. Is there something that could be done there in a separate bill at some point?
The minimum wage is so complex in the sense that when you get it too high, you're eliminating those kind of training wage jobs. You're eliminating certain sectors that have depended upon that entry-level employee. But currently it's $725. I think the federal poverty level is about $858. I've been a business owner that has always viewed raising wages as a key thing you need to do to keep good people around. Of course, that's done through the marketplace. If you were really looking at minimum wage, you would index it by cost of living across the country. You can make the argument in New York City, Seattle, San Francisco, you need a wage above 15 bucks. Why aren't they doing that now? Or when you trot out like Costco or Amazon, who brag about a $15 wage, maybe that needs to be more. But if you do a one-size-fits-all, you're going to eliminate over 1 million jobs. You're not going to acknowledge that the cost of living in places like Indiana and many of the states way lower. So if you did it smart, you acknowledge the difference between a training wage and a full-time wage, you'd get people like me that look at things a little more critically that might be interested, making sure you don't take any wage level that you would set that would raise it above where it needs to be by a state that's got value because you have lower costs there.
Okay, Senator, it's always terrific to have you with us. Thank you for your time. That's Senator Mike Braun. He's a Republican of Indiana. Coming up.